They'll find out years from now that that does stuff to kill us. Yeah, I know. I like that. I mean, I think that's great. Yeah, there's the flexibility, you know, you can wiggle around things, and you get them all house walls, you know. Yeah. Oh God, it's hot in here. Why can't they fix it, man? In the summer, it is like 40 degrees in here. You think it's hot in here?
Stop talking then. It goes up a degree. It goes up a degree every minute. You're
I was forgetting that.
I mean, I know where you live, okay?
Oh, in the house.
just offer it. Deliver all the snow.
Yeah, that's true. Bring all the snow to your house.
Then I'll just invite you over and talk.
Yeah.
We can make a little snow hill in your driveway.
Okay.
I don't need to break any more bones.
Yeah, you and I don't play with that.
Well, honestly, I fell a lot of times before I actually did something, so I keep my records straight. I mean, I skied for 20 years. Never got hurt skiing.
Could they tell where you were by all the trees?
Yeah. I tried going off the trail once. It did not end well. I stayed on the trail. Skiing with my nephew, who was probably 14 at the time, fearless. He goes off the trail. I'm like, okay, I'm going to follow him. Oh no. As soon as I got into there, I was like, quickest way out of the woods, I was out, man. I was never aggressive enough skier. I've only done like one black diamond in my life, so.
Oh, I was on the show. No, I didn't care for that snowflake. Just the wood, it was one of the ones.
Oh, yeah, no, we always had the vinyl ones.
Oh, gosh. Felt like a road run.
Yeah, to the left.
Yeah, I've had bruises and stuff, but of course I was a lot younger too, you know.
John, we good? Jeff, you good? Yep. Madam President?
We will call to order the Morrisville Borough Council meeting of February 19th, 2019. If you will all please stand for a moment of silence and our Pledge of Allegiance first. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And if we could have roll call, please.
Mayor Rivera? Councilman Bauer?
Here.
Councilman Dreisbach?
Here.
Councilman Chronicles? Here. Councilman Larison?
Here.
Councilman Ned?
Here.
Councilman Parker?
Here.
Councilman Smith?
Here.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, tonight we have a special presentation from the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority before we do our public comment. We have here Jeff Darwick, the Executive Director for the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority, and also Bob White, consultant. So if you'll come to the podium, thank you, and please welcome him.
Madam President.
Yes.
Madam President, just so you're aware, as part of the presentation, I invited the chair of the EDC and the chair of the Planning Commission to join us this evening so they can observe the presentation and ask any questions they may have.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you for inviting us here to make a special presentation to council and the residents of Morrisville Borough. As you stated, my name is Jeff Darwick. I'm the Executive Director of the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority. And I also have here with me today, tag teaming the man in the black hat, Bob White, who's been the longtime executive director of the RDA and my mentor. I've been with the RDA for 12 years now, and I've learned so much from Bob, and I'm privileged to be able to take the torch going forward. So today we're here to talk to you about a couple things. We'll talk about the Bucks County Enterprise Zone, and we'll talk about the LERTA program. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Vacant Property Review Committee and the Cloverleaf Estates project, and kind of involved in all that, the Stockham building as well. So I will start off, and then once I get through, I'll hand it over to Bob, and he'll take over from there. So to start with the Enterprise Zone of Bucks County, for those of you who might not know what that is, Bob, if you can go to slide 3. Next slide. And right there. Okay, hopefully that shows up okay at home. So many people might ask, what is a enterprise zone? An enterprise zone is basically an area designated by the Commonwealth Department of Community and Economic Development for area or areas that are determined to be distressed or there's been disinvestment over time. And typically it's your industrial or manufacturing areas. So in Bucks County, the enterprise zone was first established back in 1997. It started kind of in Bristol Township and then expanded from there to include 6 municipalities, basically from Bensalem, following the Delaware River up to Morrisville Borough. In 2010, so from that first designation, we kind of ran out of opportunities to extend that first designation. We applied for a new designation in 2010 under some new guidelines. And we were able to pick up some new areas that previously weren't allowed under the old guidelines. And we also picked up Pendle Borough as a new municipality. So we had 7 municipalities participating in the enterprise zone. And that designation expired on July 1st of 2018, so expired last year. So we're coming up with a plan to reapply on behalf of the county commissioners and the participating municipalities. And we hope to have a new enterprise zone established by the next fiscal year, July 1st, 2019, under the Keystone Communities program now. And that would be, it's a 5-year designation. Previously it used to be a 7-year designation. So the mission of the Bucks County Enterprise Zone has and continues to pretty much be the same. It's to identify and resolve impediments to business development and growth, and to work with businesses and local governments to identify the impediments and to facilitate public-private partnerships to increase new investment and reinvestment in the enterprise zone. So the big question, I guess, would be, what are the benefits of being in the enterprise zone or being an enterprise zone? So, of course, one of the ones that have been heavily utilized in Bucks County is the availability and access to low-interest loans or below-market rate loans. And a lot of these, from a local standpoint, are provided through people that or agencies that we partner with regularly on projects, the Bucks County Industrial Development Authority, the Workforce Development Board, the Bucks County Economic Development Corporation, just to name a few examples. Probably one of the direct financial benefits from being in an enterprise zone is that businesses that are located or are going to locate into an enterprise zone and make capital improvements to their properties are eligible to apply for a state tax credit through the Enterprise Zone Tax Credit Program. That is a state tax credit. The legislator appropriates funding every year for that program. It has nothing to do with local taxes at all. And it's 25% of the approved project up to a cap of $500,000. The program is competitive, so you're competing against other applicants throughout the state. So it's not a guaranteed program, but it's been a very good one that we've been able to utilize very successfully here in Bucks County in the enterprise zone. Also, brownfields is another big benefit. If you're in a state enterprise zone, brownfield sites, kind of from the state's perspective, bump up on the priority list. So that means There's potential financial assistance for assessment and remediation. And we utilize at the Redevelopment Authority a program called the Industrial Sites Reuse Program pretty heavily. So that provides funding up to $200,000 for phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments and up to $1 million for environmental remediation. We take all our properties through the Pennsylvania Act 2 program, the land recycling program. So that's been a very good one. We've done a lot of sites and leveraged a lot of grant money for private investment in Bucks County. Another thing businesses should keep in mind is that they would receive priority consideration for any resource that's administered by the Commonwealth that would assist in leveraging imminent business investment and job creation. And usually when you have projects like that, you involve the governor's action team and folks from the state to develop packages to really bring companies into the enterprise zone. Also, important for businesses, many may not know this, but they would receive priority consideration if they do bidding on state contract work. So usually there's an opportunity or a place where you can say that you're located in an enterprise zone, and that would theoretically give you an advantage over the competition. To round it out, businesses have access to local firms and financing institutions on mutually advantageous terms. This kind of ties back into the first bullet point, where we work with our partners. They often partner with private banks and can provide pretty favorable terms and rates on various loan programs. And then lastly, priority consideration for other DCD programs. I think that's also an important one for the borough to consider, especially when you fill out grant applications. It's always important to point out that you are located or have areas designated as an enterprise zone. So up on the PowerPoint there, we have a slide which should show the current, it wants to show the current enterprise zone designation. You can see it in the pink color there. And then what we think we have a good opportunity to apply for to expand the enterprise zone, which would basically include some adjacent areas on Bridge Street and the commercial corridor. Also a pocket of industrial zoned land right off of Trenton Avenue, and then tying back some areas off of Philadelphia Avenue. Certainly that's proposed, nothing that we're finalizing or setting in stone right now. But just keep in mind, the enterprise zone is primarily for industrial and manufacturing zoned or use areas. So we got to tie, if we're going to go outside of that, we got to kind of tie it to the overall big picture, which is, you know, manufacturing and industrial. So I think you can make a case that some of those areas have been disinvested in over time due to the decline of manufacturing and industrial over a course of several decades. So in the end, you know, if there's any businesses in Morrisville that are interested in expanding or growing their workforce or their business, certainly be happy to talk to them, discuss the enterprise zone and how it may be a benefit to them. And then finally, what we would be asking for council is, you know, required as part of our application to submit to the state is a resolution, just, you know, affirming your participation in the program. We're looking to get this submitted next month. Hopefully it gives the state ample time to review the application and make a decision by the next fiscal year. So I did provide a sample resolution previously. I'd be happy to provide that again. And that would wrap up the enterprise zone. I could take questions now on that, or if you want to hold off till everything's done, we can do that then.
I can ask the EDC members or the planning commission if you have on this particular subject, if you'd like to. Sure.
Yes, I just want to know if there's a map available of the current enterprise zone.
Yes, there is. It was shown up there, and the areas in pink are basically what's included now. So to give you perspective, it's basically the Staley's plant and the Toll Brothers plant.
Yeah, if you can't see it well, we are going to put a copy of the presentation on the borough website, so it will be available.
All right, I remember the original zone. I don't know the current one.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Is there anyone else from either one of those boards? Okay. Okay, Jeff, you can
Okay.
go on.
So the next thing we wanted to talk a little bit about was the LRTA program. LRTA stands for the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act. And this is a state law that authorizes the state or the local taxing authorities to provide a temporary tax abatement for new construction and improvements to industrial, commercial, and other business properties in deteriorated areas. So the LRTA district boundaries, they're established locally by the municipal governing body. It must meet the criteria established under the urban redevelopment law. And I would note that the borough does have in place a certified redevelopment area, which is that requirement, I believe established around 2006, which could kind of be used as the foundation to establish the boundaries for a LRTA district. Ultimately, the local taxing authorities would need to adopt a resolution or an ordinance approving the terms of the LRTA. I think, it's important to kind of discuss why you would want to use a LRTA program. For one, it provides a great incentive for existing businesses to improve their properties in the borough. It also creates a great marketing opportunity to attract new businesses from outside of the borough to invest in the borough and properties. Also, it's important to note property owners continue to pay the current tax revenues. This is a temporary abatement only on the new value of the property, the new assessed value of the property, resulting from the new construction or rehabilitation or improvements. So the idea really is to incentivize, attract new investment to this area, and then increase revenue ultimately going forward. So the maximum abatement period by the law is 10 years. It can be on a graduated scale. So for example, you could do a 10% increment over 10 years. You can do a 20% increment over 5 years. You can do a level LRTA term. That's ultimately, again, established by the local taxing authorities. Again, just some thoughts on some areas. Of course, you have the CRA boundaries already established, which basically encompass the areas of Staley all the way over to basically Bridge Street. Ultimately, we'd have to have a public hearing in Morrisville Borough to discuss that and then bring that back to council. So that would, if you go by those boundaries, you'd obviously have 32 West Bridge Street, which we're working on right now, the old Lehigh rubber plant. I'm sure they could surely benefit from a LRTA program. Also, the Cloverleaf Estates property, which we'll talk about a little bit later, would be a perfect opportunity for the LRTA program to assist with that challenging property.
So what you're proposing is to establish a LRTA zone as opposed to doing a piecemeal property or project by property or project like we've done in the past.
I think establishing a LRTA district would be preferable. But again, it's totally up to
And you're saying the boundary for the LRTA district would mirror that of the CRA?
It would. It wouldn't be as extensive because the CRA does include residential and the LRTA doesn't cover residential.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So it'd be the CRA boundary, but only for commercial properties?
Yes. Okay. But you can reduce it from there.
Right.
And industrial, yes. So, so this isn't new or unique to Bucks County. Just a couple examples that I picked off real quick. Bristol Borough has one. It was instrumental in the Lennox property, which was the former Dial Soap property, 183,000 square feet, now Class A office space. Sellersville Borough, the old Amatech site, the brownfield redevelopment property. Now you have a nice new facility being constructed right now for a company that manufactures solar panels. Quakertown Borough has one. Bristol Township has established a LRTA district, and Northampton Township as well. So if there's any other questions on LRTA, or if anybody in the audience has any questions on LRTA, again, that's just informational purposes. We're not, no action or anything today. There's a process to follow after this.
If for some, I'm sorry.
No, I just.
If for some reason council didn't want to consider alerted district, the RDA is still requesting that we approve alerted status for 32 West Bridge and Cloverleaf, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Not to interrupt you, but each applicant for that tax relief has to make a separate application to the borough.
Okay.
So you haven't notified the applicant. It's not saying everybody gets them.
Right.
They have to meet certain requirements to qualify.
Right. But whatever we set up in our ordinance for either establishing alerted district or doing it piecemeal, project and property at a time, we also have to get the other taxing authorities, meaning the county and the school district, to adopt the same framework.
Correct. The school district obviously being probably the most important one.
Right. Yeah, the county is usually willing to do just about anything the municipality is willing to do. The school district can be more of a challenge.
Historically, yes. If the first two bodies approve, the county typically will approve.
So you basically just want everyone to know that because you're establishing, or you would like us to establish a boundary for that area, it doesn't automatically give every business that comes in that alert. They still individually have to apply within that, correct?
That is correct. Usually the local municipality will establish a application framework that will have to be followed.
Okay, thank you.
What exactly is the benefit of the zone? Is it that you only have to do one public hearing for the whole zone as opposed to each individual property would have to have a hearing if they came in?
Yeah, to establish the boundaries, you have to have a public hearing. If you were to go an individual property route, I suppose, yes, you would have to have an individual public hearing to establish that boundary each time somebody proposed alerting.
Well, I think there's also a marketing advantage to it if it's an established
Absolutely.
district versus done piecemeal, because an investor or developer looking at an individual property is rolling the dice on whether or not the taxing authorities can get their heads together around a uniform policy.
That's correct, yeah.
Versus if it's already in place and it's just a matter of them getting individually approved for their project.
Excellent point. And yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Is there anyone from the boards, the EDC, or?
If you have a zone, an alert zone, if a company or business outside that zone wanted to apply for an alert, would they still be allowed if approved through the borough?
They would have to be, the property would have to be, to my knowledge, it would have to be located in the established alerted district. Yeah.
Anyone else from either of the economic boards? Okay, all right. Anyone else up here? We can always ask once he's done everything too. Please, Jeff.
Okay. So the next thing we wanted to cover is the Vacant Property Review Committee. You know, we've been working with Morrisville Borough. They've had a standing Vacant Property Review Committee for years, probably since I've been here, and, you know, various forms of activity over the years. But I think last year, the borough has really taken an effort to rekindle this group and really start tackling blight. And I commend you guys for doing that. So, you know, I put what the definition of blight is according to the urban redevelopment law. I can go through each criteria if you think that would be beneficial for the public, or just generally summarize.
Yeah, we're going to post all this up on the internet also.
Okay.
You can give a brief overview if you like. But
Yeah, it's basically, you know, they're properties that are public nuisances, safety hazards, tax delinquent, utilities have been cut off. You know, that's a blighted property. I think certainly almost every community probably has those. And I'm sure you guys hear about some of those in your own backyard. Some of them or one of them I'll talk about a little bit later. So the importance of this program and of the Vacant Property Review Committee is it provides you guys with a tool, because you guys, you know, municipalities, especially small boroughs with limited resources, it can be challenging to deal with these properties effectively to get these out of their blighted condition. As we all know, vacant blighted properties reduce property values, they present public health and safety issues, and they constrain municipal budgets. So the Redevelopment Authority, through the powers of the Urban Redevelopment Law, has the ability to acquire and rehabilitate vacant blighted properties. And I stress vacant because we're not talking about occupied properties. These are vacant blighted properties. Also, we acquire these and rehabilitate these properties through process and procedures that are set forth in the Urban Redevelopment Law. So basically, step one is establishing a vacant blighted property review committee, which you guys have done. Then you review blighted properties and the conditions of blight. Typically, you generate a report that documents the conditions of blight. And then the review committee and the planning commission would make a determination that the property is blighted. Once that's done, the property owner is notified that the property has been declared blighted, and they are given an opportunity to remedy the blight. They have to come to the borough, present a plan and a time frame that's acceptable to the borough to address the blighted conditions. They're notified by the local zoning officer or code enforcement officer after that blight determination is made. So if they do not respond, then the property is then forwarded over to the Redevelopment Authority and our Board of Directors for condemnation. Once that happens, the property owner is again afforded an opportunity to basically object to the blight and present a plan to remedy the blight. Assuming that they do not respond, then we'll take right to possession of the property, and then we will look to rehabilitate the property, basically at the direction of the municipality. I would like to point out, every property is different. There's always mitigating circumstances, but the process and the procedures outlined in the law gives property owners ample time and due process to appeal the blight and then bring a plan and construction timeframe to the borough to get that property rehabilitated. We do not want to take properties or people's homes. That's not what we want to do. We want to see these properties get back to out of their blighted condition, back to productive use on their own. So we are kind of like a last resort. Let's put it that way. We've ran out of all options. It's time to move forward with the property. So I just want to stress that. I also wanted to point to some success stories we've had in Bristol Township. Back in 2015, Bristol Township had identified over 200 vacant properties within the township boundaries. So in 2016, they partnered with the Redevelopment Authority and they initiated this blight abatement program. And that same year, we condemned 5 properties. All of the properties have been rehabilitated and are back on the tax rolls. The next year, 2017, we condemned 5 more properties. Same thing. All the properties were rehabilitated and put back to productive use. Last year, we condemned 6 vacant blighted properties. One of them has been rehabilitated. 4 properties are in progress, and then we have 1 that we expect to go under agreement this month. So at the end of the day, since 2015, when the township identified over 200 properties to today, they have less than 80 vacant properties that they've inventoried. So we've only had to condemn 16, which means word's gotten out. Property owners are stepping up to the plate. And there's been a lot of other properties that have been blighted, but they've never been passed on to the Redevelopment Authority because the mere threat of condemnation has triggered action. So it's been a very, very good program in Bristol Township. And, I hope that we can have the same results here. Probably not on as a bigger scale because obviously you guys are a little bit smaller, but it's a great opportunity to address the blighted properties here in the borough. Just wanted to point out a couple properties that we did in Bristol Township. On the top left, it's a property on 18 Crosswood. There was bamboo growing everywhere. Roof was gone. that was a demolition project and new development. So that's what, to the right is what you see what was built and sold fairly quickly. On the bottom is a property that I had to guide Bob to because he couldn't find it because that's what he was looking at on the bottom left. He was driving around trying to figure out where this Elmhurst property was. I was like, it's right on the corner. You can't miss it. Well, it was behind a bunch of trees and overgrown and rubbish. There was tires everywhere. That was a demolition project. I think there were 6 deer that ran out when we demolished that property. So that property was subdivided, and now there's 2 new owner-occupied homes on that site. So really good project. 2 good examples of projects that we've taken through the blight program with the township. And then here in the borough, of course, right now in progress, we have 4345 Park Avenue, which was the property that unfortunately suffered from a fire and nothing ever happened, I think for, I guess, at least 2 years now. That property went through the process. Property owners were notified, received no responses, and the authority condemned that property. We have right to possession of it, and we currently have a request for offers out on that property, which is due back next week. So we hope to have, we have gotten interest in that. If there's anybody interested in that property that's listening, they can contact me, and I'll send them our property application form. So we hope to have good news on that next week, and we'll keep rolling from there. So that's what we're working on right now with the Vacant Review Committee. If anybody has any questions on that, I'd certainly be happy to address those now or later.
Do you have any questions on those? You guys? No? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've done my spiel, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. White.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
And this is Mr. Bob White.
Yeah, my name is Bob White, and I've been with the Redevelopment Authority for more years than I can think, and I've been through Morrisville Borough for my lifetime. And you always look at a community, and this is just outside of my scope for a minute. When you go to a community, you look at it and you try to figure out what's the impediment out there? What's the impact? What's stopping the real growth? Because years ago, we were able to get the hardware store out in a bad apartment complex and end up with a pretty nice building, which was a good start on the town. So we're going to get into that later, but I want you to think about that when you're having meetings and you're talking, what does stop it? Why isn't it happening? I stopped at one of your diners or restaurants tonight, and I just looked around. The restaurant's pretty. If I looked outside, I look at the parking lot, I look at how it's kept, look at those kind of things. Let's try to figure out how we can improve that. What can be done to improve it? Seems like a lot of times owners just utilize the property till it's all used up. But there's times things need to be spruced up all around. We spruce our lawns up. All of you keep your house neat. When you drive up, I'm betting your driveway looks good and invitable. So things to think about. I'm here to talk about Cloverleaf Estates. And Cloverleaf, you know, we've been messing with for more than a decade, maybe a decade and a half. We started off when it was the Cloverleaf Restaurant. It was originally the Cloverleaf Dairy. And when the Redevelopment Authority got involved, it was being, you know, they were trying to get, somebody was trying to buy it to turn it into a low-income housing thing into apartments. So the council...
Bob, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Just for the people at home and the people in here, where is the Cloverleaf?
Cloverleaf is 850, right across from the cemetery on Pennsylvania Avenue at 850 Pennsylvania Avenue. And if you drive out there, you'll see, and right next to that too was 12 apartments that were very low income, and we were able to, with the council at that time, find ways to acquire all these properties, tear them down. We added the Manor Lane municipal landfill. to the properties, which makes the total property around 14 acres. And we've been trying to market it for the past decade. I've been involved with 4 different developers. And every time we get close on behalf of the housing developers, the bottom fell out of the market. One of them went bankrupt beforehand, and it just didn't make it. So now we turned around and we have Passey's, which was going to be a meat packing plant. And they make, the same meat you buy at the market, single individual steaks and stuff like that. And we convinced them to come here. We gave them a deal. They gave us a deal. They went through getting variances, changing the zoning to get that use. And then we went through the process of going back and doing a phase 2 at the project. Previously, it had been cleaned up, so to speak. But since nothing happened since 1999, we had to go back through the same process that happened before that when they got to the process to the point where they were in 1999. And they determined that all the dirt or earth materials that was brought in don't meet the Pennsylvania regulations. Either they're high in metals, minerals, might have a little lead, who knows, but I'm just saying, so we're back at day one, so to speak, with that. That could have been settled a long time ago. So the idea now is to find a way to develop it. Passey's wanted to put a 70,000 square foot packaging plant. They would be cutting meat, shipping it, and they would have a flash freezer. The flash freezer was like almost $2.5 million. And the person that was selling that flash freezer didn't want to take the risk of building that on top of a landfill. So that's kind of what took Passey's out. Before that hand, we were all in. We even moved the building around and tried to figure ways to make it work. So in the meantime, Passey has about $250,000 involved in it. He was able to find another developer that was willing to give him money to buy what he had. That's the environmental stuff and all the engineering to date. So he bought that. And unfortunately, I wish the pictures you could see bigger, because on that screen over there, they're full screen. But it's important to know that right now what we're thinking about, the developer that we're talking about, is interested in either doing some commercial industrial project, which he usually has, that have industrial sales, retail, and wholesale. And he's done a lot of work with us. And unfortunately, you got any pictures you can show him? Unfortunately, you can't see some of the things that this guy's done that you should see. First of all, in Bristol Township, we had the McPherson property, which had over $1.5 million worth of environmental problems. And we took that by eminent domain, and we were able to get this company in to work and take the building. And if you could just see it, I mean, it went from a horrible building to a really nice building. He did the same thing at 960 River Road in Bristol Township. And let me see, there's one other one here. Oh, yeah, plus, how many are familiar with Yardley Walk? Okay, that's the guy. That's the guy that set that up, got all the plans approved, cleaned up the magnet site, did over $2 million worth of environmental cleanup. Now it's a beautiful housing development. So one of his thoughts on this project was to try to see if he could do some housing there, but not big houses, but more or less smaller ranch type houses. So it would be invitable to seniors, maybe some people that are handicapped, because you only have one floor. These would be 2 and 3 bedrooms, 1,500 to 2,000 square feet with 1 or 2 car garages. And that's, to me, is a good thing, because it won't have a lot of bearing onto that landfill. Other than that, the other thing would be to like we said, do that 70,000 square foot building that Passys was going to do and condo it into 7 portions and find buyers for each one of them. And that's where we're kind of at with that. We're going to have to go back and, oh, there you got pictures, finally. But I mean, you have to really look at that Yardley site. We were like 11 or 12 years. We had the people there with the white coats. I mean, that was the worst site that we ever were on. And I've been on, well, I shouldn't say it. There's one in Ben Salem was a little worse, but that was the first time I ever saw everybody come out with white coats and masks and all that stuff to go in, because we found barrels of stuff nobody knew what it was. So we had to go through that. And that was a very expensive operation. So as far as that goes, that's all I have. He will be coming before the council and, of course, to the Planning Commission to discuss his plan. And you'll have an opportunity at that time to discuss that right with him to determine what you really want to do. But I know we want to do it. It's going to cost about $1 million to cap it. We were unsuccessful in getting a grant from the ISRP grant program. They didn't have the money. Now, we're still hoping we'll get money this year. But that's yet to be seen, because the DEP was somewhat funded by the HASCA fund, which is hardly no longer. So when they get money, they don't have as much to put out. And it is a very competitive program. They look for how many jobs and all those kind of things that you're trying to put together. And we had a good plan with Passys, because that would have been 70 jobs. This type thing could either be 50, 60 single homes, or again, some kind of property that would probably have 50 or 60 employees at it. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But we're going to get it developed, because I can't retire permanently till that happens, because this has been one of those things. And unless anybody has any questions on that, I got one more.
I have one. I'm sorry. I have one real quick. So there's 2 ideas that this developer would like to look at, whether it be single one-level homes,
He's kind of,
or some type of a lighter industrial type of thing. With you, I don't know when this reading for your grant is going to be. Is the groundwork, as far as that being remediated for what you need to put the capping on, hinging with this also?
That would all be done before you did any work. That would have to be, you would have a letter from the DEP saying you could do residential. It's the same thing. You know, you're familiar with Morrisville Borough, riverfront. But when we first did that, the first 13 acres, 56 homes that McGrath built, we had to take everything off that site. So that made it like pristine. So he got that property then. And then the stuff on the next side wasn't qualified at that time for residential. But by going through certain processes, by putting cover over it, creating no way for the pathway for anybody to get to the high lead levels, high metal levels, there's no real terrible stuff there. They were able to build houses again. I'm sure that McGrath would have built the whole thing if you could have done it. And you know, the good thing to remember is he built that in 1 year. I mean, they sold out in a year. He didn't build in a year without a sales office there. So people want to live in Bristol. And I think people want to live in Morrisville. And I think that getting to work on some of the stuff, and believe me, you can't fire me because I'm retired. So actually, as I look around this town, the biggest impediment I see in this town for development and making this go is only one building. For 26 years, believe me, it's been like that. I keep hearing we're fixing it. We got 2 million, we got 10 million. I don't care what you got. That is a horrible, horrible building. That is your landmark building. That is what you build from. It's a 6 or 5-story building. It could be fantastic. And it's only in our minds, you know, whatever the human mind can conceive but can achieve. And we got to do that. And we can't do that as individual people. You can't do it as a council. these guys in the EDC and, the Planning Commission, they can't do it. We all got to do it. That's how we got Bristol done. We got the county commissioners in. We got Section 108 loan money where we could go and buy that Dial Soap building, turn around and put Lennox in. Lennox brought 400 jobs. There was only 160 when we took it. We were able to get grants to demolish a lot of stuff. So that building is not too tough for us.
Of course, you're talking about our Stockham building.
I
kind of figured.
I'm going to tell you, as you look around down there, and I did that today, and that's like the heart of town. You got the old bank still there. That's a good bank. Somebody's going to want to do it. I saw the Curtin Hefner buildings up for auction for $250. That's a big building too. And something could be done, but it's not going to be done if we try to do it as a redevelopment authority, we ought to get together. We need to have a committee. You need to have a review committee for the town. Somebody that's serious. People that come to the plate with money. Find developers that'll pay. In my 26 years, everybody says, how'd you get all these projects done? Well, it certainly wasn't all government funds. I found developers that wanted to develop things there. And that's why they're done. I mean, same thing with when we hit the Dial Soap property. Who would ever thought that Mike O'Neill was going to come down and take a look? Call me, I picked him up. I'm driving him down Ratcliffe Street, and he says, this is the biggest secret in Bucks County. What a place. He bought that, turned it into the Lennox building. And then, of course, he sold the other piece off because the bottom fell out of the office business, and now it's going to be houses, and it's finally going back and being built again, so we're happy with that. But we're a redevelopment authority. We're here to help. But
is there a chance we're going to grab that building, that Stockham building, do something with that building soon?
Listen, I know that I can tell you for sure everybody felt like we all do. Listen, I don't believe in taking somebody's property and giving it to somebody else. That's not where I come from. But I do believe that you don't have a right to let your property be a wreck and take down the value of my property.
Right.
I don't think that's kosher anywhere you go. So, but we can do it. But we have to be serious. So let's say you decide you're going to put your sights on that building. You get everybody lined up. You got all your ducks lined up, and all the planets are in order. What do you think is going to happen? If the owner truly doesn't want you to take it, he's going to step to the plate and fix it. He's not going to keep doing stuff like that, putting people in a building that doesn't have a complete certificate of occupancy. It's like, I think I saw a light on tonight. Didn't I see somebody going in there?
That's what we want. If we want it to go somewhere, we just don't want it to stay the way it is.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But I mean, they were just going in. I don't know what they were doing. But
at present, it has no legal occupants.
Right. But it doesn't have to be vacant. That's in the certified redevelopment area. And as Jeff said, the way you were going to do it is you're going to set up an incentive program. Bring the people here. But I know you're talking about some guy that wants to do a good gentleman, by the way, that wants to build a shopping center, so to speak. And whether that happens or not, I don't know where that's at because I haven't talked to him for a few days. But everything starts. The first step in a 1,000-mile journey is that first step. And we here got to do it. I mean, I know that it seems like everywhere we go, politics gets involved. Everybody's like when we really ran into this in one community, which I won't mention, but everything was flying along on a project, and all of a sudden, 4 new councilmen that killed the job. And I mean, it's 4 people that just controlled the whole thing when the project was set up by the community. I'm not saying to you, let's have a meeting between you, me, and Jeff. I'm talking about having meetings with people from the community and the business people. Sit down and see if you can come up with something. That's it. That's what I got. I get off the soapbox.
Mr. White? Mr. White, I have a couple questions for you.
Yes.
Thank you for your many years of service to Bucks County. When you look back at Bristol Borough, they were at a point that we're at one point. How many years did it take them to get to where they are now
You know, I don't know if you remember the 1960s there. It was horrible.
I was born in 65.
I think you were better than that one. But, you know, I would say they've really made a difference in the last 20-some years.
Okay.
I like to take some credit for some of it. Because I think that a redevelopment authority run the proper way just shines a bright light on something. It just says, look, this is a problem. How are we going to solve it?
Right.
But we can't solve it. We have absolutely no money. Redevelopment Authority is not financed or supported for its personnel or anything with any direct taxes. It would be indirect in the fact that if I do work for you, you pay me, then I can pay my people, just like you run a business. So we can do it here. We did it there. But, you know, they didn't do it by just sitting around. They went and talked to the commissioners. They got the commissioners. They got the representatives. They got the congressmen. How'd they get a ramp? I mean, how'd they get a beautiful place to go
Marina.
off the pier there?
Yeah.
You know, and you didn't get this building fixed. I think the commissioners should get involved in that. You can tell them I said so.
Okay.
They should
We
get
will.
down here. This is a very important, this is where everybody comes in.
Right.
This is, just like the other thing that's near your town is that junkyard out there by Route 1. That's another eyesore, but it's not in Morrisville, it's in Falls
Township. I know something our borough manager has echoed, that we're in a marathon, not a sprint. You know, you touched on politics, and, you know, every couple of years, our council seats go up for, half the council seats go up for reelection. Is there any tool that we can put into place that will ensure the vision that you and Jeff have talked about that will continue regardless of the faces on the dais?
I think that happens, like it happened in Bristol because, you know, the people were involved.
Okay.
And, you know, it's more about, hey, look, everybody wants to get reelected. I know that.
Right, right.
We got all them guys. But I'm just saying, it's more important. I look for the person that's willing to give, even if it costs you a position to get it done right. I mean,
Right.
this town really, I'm telling you, I've been coming here since 1956.
Right.
That's the first time I was allowed to drive on my own, you know?
Right.
And we came down here, you know, this was like, and it's not a lot of difference.
Right.
Seriously, and I don't
Right.
mean that in a bad way. I like
Right.
it. I lived here for like 11, 12 years, ran a business here, and it's a nice town. It's a nice town. It's a nice, small, quaint, can be the place to live. The more people that and the more businesses we could bring in here, the less taxes we got to tax people. And the LERTA, everybody looks at, well, we're giving up taxes. You're not giving up taxes. You still get the taxes you were getting. You're only giving up the part where the guy makes it worth more. In the first year, he's going to pay 10%, or however you set it up to 10 years. And if you the actual facts are, LERTA save half the money over the period of the LERTA. If it's a 5-year LERTA, it's 20% every year. 10 years is 10%. What does that do? That allows your developer to come in, do a little better than he might have been able to do because he's not worrying about paying $200,000 worth of taxes or $100,000 or $50,000. And if he gets to pay 30 now and then 40 and then 50 and then 60, it's just like, I don't know, when I bought my house, the first house, it was $68, by the way. I didn't know how I was going to pay it. But I'm going to tell you this, after you have the house, and I bought more since that, after you have them a while, a couple of years, it's like, oh, this is nothing. I could look for another house now. And I think that's the same way you got to look at builders. They need a time to get the client, get their properties filled, and you stagger it up. I don't like the way they just take them and no tax. And then 5 years later, there is a tax because I think that taxes the project altogether. I mean, come on, that's a big jump.
One thing to that?
Huh?
Just one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I first started here, let me back up. I think in 2005, the enterprise zone municipalities all participated in the Bucks County waterfront revitalization plan. And since I've been here, that's been an enduring document. I think that's probably one of the most active plans I've seen since I've been here that just about everyone points to. And it's very helpful for us in terms of going after grant funding and things like that. So
And that's the Bucks County Waterfront Revitalization Plan.
Morrisville was a participant in.
Okay.
So I think a document like that where you get, now that was like a 30,000 foot overview, but that has endured. And that was 2005, I think it was officially adopted. So we're talking 14 years later. It's still something that we point to.
One of the universities was involved in that, wasn't it?
No, that was funded by the Delaware DRBC.
Oh, DVRPC? Yeah.
And again, you've had different studies, but I believe that every dollar spent on a study is a wasted dollar. It should be put in the program. We should be able to get together and find out what we need to do and get it done. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize you got to use, like the redevelopment authority is a tool in your toolbox. You can look at everything. They're like, you know, when you have a toolbox, you need a hammer, you get a hammer. That's what a redevelopment authority is. That's what an IDA is. That's what an EDC is. They're all tools, and they're at your disposal. You have to decide which one you want to use. And I think putting together a committee, a study committee, that you're not paying $50,000 million for, that comes into the meeting room here, sits down and talks. You'd be surprised when we talked about the Levittown Shopping Center. People came and had all kinds of ideas what ought to happen there. None of them happened, but they were all good. You don't laugh at anybody. A guy wanted to build a boat there, big boat, like he went on a cruise in a 17-story boat. He said we could do that and put, you know, moat around it and have them go across little bridges. And it's just ideas. That's no idea is a bad idea. You look and see, and you got people. If you build an incentive program, if you're a friendly community towards development, if you look outside the box and think about which is better or which is worse. But that's not always how easy it goes because there's 8 of you, right? You have to all agree to the same thing, and it's not impossible, by the way. I mean, sometimes you wonder, but I've been around the redevelopment authority for 26 years. We never had a nay in my whole 26 years.
Got one here.
So, there you go.
That's his name.
You are with me. Yeah, you are. That's it. I should have had you on the board.
Right.
But, you know, I look forward to it. I got a couple more years to toil around in this stuff. And I mean, I got my sights on that cloverleaf at least getting closed and being out of the boroughs and the redevelopment authority's coffers and somebody else's problem. And I think we can get that done. You know, a developer is not going to settle on it like we are. We're sitting on it ain't eating no hay. It's not costing us anything. We're not making anything. We never did make anything off of it, so nobody really gets, but it could be making a lot of money. Just think if they put 60 homes, what are we talking about? I don't know, 7,000, 8,000 a home? I'm just guessing, don't hold me to it, but it's a lot of difference in the way it is. Yep. So whatever I can do, whatever the redevelopment authority can do, I'm sure my board, or Jeff's board now, would certainly like to help.
Excellent.
Thank you. Anything else?
Any questions?
And we're sorry that that didn't show full screen because
Okay.
screen on that computer.
Okay, I'll ask the board first. Do you have any questions for
I have a quick question.
Bob or Jeff?
Can we adjust the heat in this building, or is Danielle taking over and is trying to kill us all?
It is. It's hot. It's very hot.
I can, but I'll have a permanent limp. She's already told me if I touch that thermostat, I'm dead.
Fair enough. I withdraw my request.
Sorry.
Go ahead, adjust the heat.
Jeff, I have a question on the enterprise zone. Is there any drawbacks or downsides for the borough to expand that zone?
No.
It doesn't cost us anything, right?
Nope.
Nope.
It's just a designation, which brings with it some benefits for the businesses.
I know we had tried once we were not voted to go through with that back in 2010, I think it was. We tried then later, about 5 years into the program, did do a vote to try and get into that. We realized how beneficial that was to some of these other towns. But of course, we weren't accepted into it. So this is the idea is now that they've because that program closed in July, I believe, this past year in 2017. So now they're looking to expand it and continue on because it was so beneficial, correct? So now we're trying to get us in, hopefully, this round to help with that. So I don't think that's a bad thing, especially since it doesn't cost us anything.
Correct.
May I ask?
Sure.
Jeff, while you're up there, the Cloverleaf Estates property, has the new developer officially stepped in to the shoes of the previous guy? And
yes,
are you able at this time to disclose who that is, or is that still confidential?
There is an entity name.
Well, he's actually calling it Cloverleaf LLC, but it's a company from Yardley, Minot. I don't know if any of you have heard of it.
Yeah, Minop Inc., I believe, MNOP.
Okay. Any ETA, are you guys going to coordinate the capping first, and then will the developer make the rounds to planning commission, zoning, et cetera? Or are we going to try to do dual path and do both at the same time?
Bob, you want to take that one?
The quickest way to check, short as this, you know what I mean? Like, I think that some of the stuff that the guy's going to do is going to help you do the cover, so that makes it a little less costly. So probably tie them together. It'd be nice if we got the $1 million off the state.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is that grant application in, or is it going in next cycle?
It's in. We need to understand if we need to resubmit it for the next funding appropriations round, which is July 1st, 2019.
Okay. And as it pertains to the Stockham building, how aggressive can we get with this? Because my patience has been worn through.
I certainly think it might be something we can discuss at the vacant review committee.
I'll put it on the agenda.
Potential blight designation to get the ball rolling that way.
Doesn't the CRA existing CRA designation kind of put you guys in the driver's seat on that?
It does. That process, I think, would be a little bit different than going through it as a individual blighted property. I think there's some unique circumstances with that building. It probably need to be further investigated with legal counsel as to the best approach to proceed. I believe it's condoed into 3 or 4 separate tax parcels. So
yes.
I think there would need to be a little bit more investigation into actually what is going on with that property. I think there's a lot of talk and a lot of rumors. So figuring out what are the facts, getting as many of the facts as we can before proceeding would be a good idea.
Is that something that can be addressed, these issues, once it would be before the vacant property board, so that in that process, we'd be able to find out the issues with those parcels? Is that going to be part of that, to see where we steer it?
Yeah, so as part of any report, we would like to do a title search and pull that down to see what's going on.
Okay.
And also an appraisal of the property to see what really is the fair market value of that property. I think that would give us a really good understanding which path, which
So that might
is a
be
good direction to follow on that.
That might be a first step, is the blighted property, to start the ball rolling on the paperwork on where we go with it and find out that information that we need.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anyone from the EDC or Planning Commission that wishes to ask any other questions? Yeah, we thank you both for coming out. The council has a lot to mull over. We appreciate all the information about the Alerta and the RDA, the blighted property. Definitely Cloverleaf. You said it's a difficult property. We've all been watching this for the last 10 years. So we we hope that you can get the funding that you need that you didn't get last year to start working with that ground, so that something can be done with it. And hopefully this developer at some point will then be able to come before the council with some kind of an idea on where we could possibly take it after that. Okay?
I think he's just looking into which way he wants to go, and then he'll be here
Okay.
to meet everybody.
Yeah, because a lot of developers have come in and out of the borough through the past year, and they ask about land and what's available and your zoning and all that stuff. But until they actually bring it here, it's all just talk. So, like I said, all those incentives are really important to have people want to come here. And that's, like I said, that's a group effort with the EDC and the Planning Commission and zoning and all of us and you. So I say we keep moving in that direction to help it out.
Yeah, we'll come here every month and do a presentation. No.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
You too. Thank you very much. Thanks, Steve. Before we do the public comment, I'll just let everyone know we had two things come before us after the agenda was drawn up, and it was requested that we add it to the agenda tonight. So we're going to add it under new business. And one of them is the Morrisville Business Association is requesting us to, they want to do a car show down on Bridge Street. And I'll read the motion when we come up for it, but they have to submit, the borough will actually on their behalf, paperwork to PennDOT to be able to do that. There was a car show originally years ago down on Bridge Street, but you have to go through that process. So they have submitted a letter before the council on what they would like to do and a rain date for that. So that was asked to be put on the agenda tonight for the council for consideration. The second one was from the Morrisville Little League, who got their letter in at the last minute also, and they would like approval for their parade scheduling. So that was also added tonight. So this way everyone knows what those added things are. There wasn't anything else, right? Just those two?
The request from the borough engineer on direction for this season's grant applications.
Okay, is that an actual motion? Is it just a consensus on what we want to do?
Well, we should probably take a vote since he's asking for authorization to appropriate money. Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go over those different ones and the council can make those decisions. Okay, so at this time then I will open public comment. I will remind the public to please keep it within the 3-minute time frame. There'll be a little alarm that goes off just in case to just kind of give you a heads up where you're at. The first one is Holly Harmon. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Holly Harmon, Hillside Avenue. Took a chance got past the new site for the tot lot and noticed that thankfully they had taken down that tree because it was diseased. It's got an entirely hollow center of the pieces that are laying there, so it wasn't a bad thing to get that one down. I do want to also thank the Morrisville Borough staff for participating in the cleanup at the YMCA. I think it's a nice gesture and a time to give back a little bit to the community, and it's a really worthy cause. And my last issue was, and I know I CC'd Debbie on this email, last week was witness to an accident on East Trenton Avenue, and several of us stopped and tried to call 911. Of course, we knew we were going to get Trenton. And their solution was not to push us back over to Bucks County, but to give us the non-emergency number to call, which, of course, was busy. So I know this has been a problem for a while, and I just wanted to know if there's any way, you know, you can bump it up to the county. Obviously, as a citizen, probably doesn't have as much clout as a council member or whatever to see if there's a solution to that problem when there is an emergency that, you know, needs attention. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, may I?
Yes, I was just, sure, go ahead.
Do you want to?
No, you mentioned it, yep.
Actually, I think he stepped out of the room, but the police chief is here this evening, and he had wanted to comment on that specific issue. We were going to do it under 8A, the mayor's report. Do you want to still do that, or?
If the chief would like to speak
to it now?
about this 911?
That 911 thing happened to come up, chief. Do you want to talk about it now, or? Okay.
Mayor Revelle and I were very aware of the situation. We contacted the Emergency Bucks County 911 Center. Audrey reached out to Mercer County, who reached out to the state of New Jersey. They have issued orders to all the communications centers along the river that they are not to do that, and that they gave them specific instructions just to patch them right into the 911. It was that was a bad call on somebody's part. I think we got it fixed.
Okay.
The mayor's been in contact with them all week about that situation. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, chief.
Thanks, chief. Quick question. If that does happen to somebody, would you prefer they reach out to the mayor and let him know, or to you if it happens again?
Oh, no, call the office.
Call the office, okay.
I'm on the board for the Bucks County Chiefs of Police with the radio people, so we meet every month. So this has been coming up for years now about the whole situation. We talked about putting more towers up. That's a Verizon issue. Verizon doesn't want to spend money on that stuff. So, but no, reach out to me in the office right away, and I'll take care of it.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, next is Kyle. I always say your last name wrong. Brio. I'm sorry. Please state your name and address for the record.
Kyle Brio, 430 Harper Avenue. I wanted to bring up the topic before council of trash lately. The last 6 weeks, they have either missed trash pickup or recycles or both. Not just on the street, not just my house, but the whole block, the whole area. Every time I reach out to a council member, they say, oh, a truck's broke down. Watching your previous videos, it was said that they would have a backup truck in case of these accidents. Where's this backup truck to pick up the extra stuff that when these trucks break down? It's starting to become a nuisance. I understand that it's, okay, you have a truck breakdown here, you have a truck breakdown there, but 6 weeks in a row, that is getting a little ridiculous. They need to be started held responsible for a service that we are grossly paying for. So
Thank you.
if you guys could talk about that between yourselves and get a solution, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will mention on this subject right now, it was on the hotline today, this trash thing. And the trash company has probably got their ears burning right now still, because quite a few council and the management has been back and forth with them. We're not happy whatsoever. It's an embarrassment that they are continuing this, because they have been brought in before the council and before the management about this. So we are looking to see what we can do about it. So we'll see where we go. Okay, but thank you for bringing it up. Next is Mr. Butcher, Robert Butcher. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
There you go.
It's Robert Butcher, 810 South Pennsylvania Avenue, Morrisville. I do a lot of walking in the town every day when it's nice. And one of my places that I travel is underneath the railroad bridge there on Green Street and Washington Street. And I always see this pile of big stones, and they're evidently falling from the top of where the trains run over. And I happened to meet one of the council people, a member, and I mentioned it. I said, you know, that's dangerous. The stones are falling down and people walk under there. I do and everything. So he said, I'll see what I can do about it. And they contacted, he said, I'm going to contact the railroad company, which he did. And lo and behold, several weeks later, like Monday, I was walking through and it's repaired. So they put this corrugated steel over top on both sides of the walkways underneath the underpass of the bridge, which makes it a safe place to walk again, because some of those stones are pretty big. And I'd like to thank Dave Ney, he's the one I bumped into that followed through on it and got it done. So I want to thank him very much. And I also would like to thank all the rest of the council for all the nice things you do in the town.
Oh, thank you very
that
much.
I'm not aware of. So have a great evening, and thank you.
You too. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Ney, for taking care of that.
Larson also provided some contact information on that.
Oh, very good. Thank you. That was a very good joint effort to take care of that problem. Okay, seeing there's no one else on public comment, we will close public comment at this time.
President Smith?
Oh, I'm
sorry. I came in and I missed the list. I'd like to speak if I could. If I can, I understand.
Sure. Come on.
Thank you. 3 minutes.
Please
30 seconds.
state your name and address for the record, please.
John DeWild, 94 West Maple. The trash thing, bill them every day. It costs some money. There's got to be something in the contract. It's not going to be rocket science. They do owe us money, bill reduction. And I'd also like tonight's presentation. I'm a little. I didn't like not being able to see the PowerPoints. It was an interesting discussion. I'd like to suggest that your IT people are standardized. People don't bring in their own equipment to do a presentation. They send it in beforehand. It's evaluated, make sure it works with the monitors. That way, since this is being televised, people at home have an even worse view than we do sitting here. That was too tiny. So, and people now have to wait for it to get posted to the website. So I would suggest that some standardization take place. So like I said, send it in beforehand, whatever format you want. It's on our system, not theirs. And I think it would actually be a better presentation for the public.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion. And did you want to speak? That was it, right? Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. All right then. All right then. We will close public comment then at this time. Okay. Okay, next on our list is, we don't have any minutes to approve tonight, so we'll go on to finance. Everyone got their treasury report. You all took a look at it unless you have any questions about that.
Just so you're aware, the January financial statement will be in your Friday packets.
Okay. All right, thank you. And so I will do a call for a motion to approve the bill list and pay the bills. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions on this motion?
No, I would just like to make a comment. When I was reviewing the bill list, I had asked Mr. Mitchell who made the change to the bill list, because it now shows what the bill is actually for.
I noticed
So there's
that,
more
yes.
description.
Yes.
So it's nice to not have to call or email and ask what the bill is actually for, so there's more of a description. So I'd like to thank Mr. Mitchell and Micah for adding that into our bill list.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even the,
it helps a lot. Thanks for
does.
doing that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and the I noticed the dates on there too for the time frame for the bills is very, very helpful. So thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, can we have a roll call on this, please?
Councilman Bowers?
Yes.
Councilwoman Drysdale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Prodigal?
Yes.
Councilwoman Larson?
Yes.
Councilman Nix?
Yes.
Councilman Parker?
Yes.
Councilwoman Smith?
Yes.
And Councilman Yeager?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Okay, our mayor isn't here tonight to do the report. Okay, next, action items, 9A.
You have our
Oh, I'm sorry.
junior
Oh, I'm
council
so
person.
sorry. Please forgive me. It's been,
Glad you're feeling better.
this is Garrett Foy. Please welcome him.
Good evening, council members. I hope you guys are all having a great start to the new year. With the new new year comes the start of many great things in my community. First, beginning last week, we started practices for one of the biggest events at my school. It's called Spirit Night. And so for the next coming weeks, students will attend weekly practices lasting until April 11th, where anyone is invited to come see student-created themed dances competing against one another. And then also at the beginning of the month was Catholic Schools Week, where through the entire week, there was just a week full of activities to celebrate Catholic school. And I just want to take this time again to thank you all for giving me the opportunity in 2019 to not only represent my school community, but also the teenagers in Morrisville. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to action items. 9A is a call motion to enter into an agreement with the Morrisville County Planning Commission for the 10-year update of the Morrisville Borough Comprehensive Plan at a cost not to exceed $17,000. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions on this motion?
I'd just like to point out that this was budgeted under the Planning Commission for this year.
Yes, it was. Okay, and I think our manager has also stated why this was necessary for this. It's been at least 10 years since we've updated this plan. So as we're working on updating the zoning, this is an important part of that whole thing, that whole package. Okay. We have a roll call on this, please.
Councilman Bowers?
Yes.
Councilwoman Driver?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sonnegal?
Yes.
Councilwoman Larison?
Yes.
Councilman Nay?
Yes.
Councilman Parker?
Yes.
Councilwoman Smith?
Yes.
And Councilman Day?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. Okay, under the unfinished, I'm sorry, we don't have unfinished, but under the new business, we have those two motions that are going to be put up. Okay, the first motion is a call for a motion to approve the Morrisville Business Association's request to hold a car show on Bridge Street on May 11th, rain date May 12th, and to authorize the borough administration to submit the permit paperwork to PennDOT.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on this motion?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
And Scott, you might be able to answer this. Is there any financial impact to the borough for getting the permit for PennDOT?
No.
Perfect.
Only time.
Excellent.
Okay. And since this, I think, does take a little bit of time to do that, that's why they're asking for this to be done. Understood. In order for it to be done in May. And the Business Association did hand out paper for you all to read tonight on it's actually the draft of like the summary of what it would all include. So you have a chance to actually read what that's about. But it would be a nice thing if we could get that.
This was in our packet as well.
Their letter request was in your, I believe, Friday packet.
Yes.
The slightly more detailed proposal we just received tonight.
Right.
We will include that in your packets again this Friday, just in case you lose what you were handed.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question, Scott. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but has the MBA talked to, I guess, all the businesses on Bridge Street where it will be closed to see if they're okay with not having their
I can't speak
customers?
to that. I think they were starting with us before they did anything to see if this was even plausible, but
Yeah, Jane Berger, MBA Board Secretary. We wanted to see if this was feasible first. We have spoken with some of the business owners already, and we're trying to give you more of a detailed proposal of what all is encompassed and what businesses are closed, and we make some space available. Businesses that have access that would be open. So we're looking to make sure the open business has access. But once we know if this is something that you would consider doing, then we're more going to formally reach out to all the businesses in the affected area.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. I guess we can do a. Oh, I'm sorry.
Closing the streets off, I take it, right?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Like I
It was
said,
done once before, correct?
Yeah,
And it was
I'm
a
going
good
back.
turnout.
Yeah, quite a few years ago, but it was done, and we weren't sure whether it was through the EDC that had done at the time in coordination with the borough. But it actually turned out to be a very nice event. We just weren't sure of the process. And after I spoke with Scott, when I got a message about this, we started to look into it a little bit. And you do have to petition PennDOT to do it properly. And actually, anything that you do where you're closing a street or using a street and you're diverting traffic at any time, you have to have those permit approvals. So once you get that, then you can set that up.
And we've obviously been working very closely with the police chief and the police department.
Yeah, oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. As soon as, like I said, the first process is, does the council want to allow it? And then the process of having the administration for the paperwork into PennDOT.
It wouldn't be all of Bridge Street. It would only be the portion between Delmore and Pennsylvania.
Correct.
The same area the previous.
It was before, correct. Okay.
Right, so that's the same area that when Winterfest had closed it in 2009?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 8-0. Thank you, everyone. Okay, the next motion that was added on is for the Morrisville Little League. There's a call for a motion to approve the annual opening day parade for the Morrisville Little League, Saturday, April 6, 2019, rain date being Saturday, April 13th. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Do we have whatever we need for their baseball season? Mr. Mitchell?
We don't have everything. We have most of what we should have at this point.
Okay, so they're have good faith.
Oh, yes.
For the year. Okay.
Yeah, everything's been going smoothly with Morrisville Little League.
Okay.
Jim Schaefer did want me to let the mayor and council know that you're certainly invited to attend. He hopes you will again, if you're available that weekend.
And this route follows the same route that they have been doing. They started down at Summerseat, they end up down at the park, but it's the same parade route, so that you all know. I believe it's in the letter also that you received at the last minute tonight. So as long as there's no other questions, then.
So they're going to start, this year they're changing it back to be at Patriots Park.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes.
Last year, that was still a construction site.
Yeah, I believe it.
Am I right?
Right, yeah, that's opened up now back there. So, anything else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 8-0.
Play ball.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Under borough officials, let me see if there's anything. There's nothing else we missed. Oh, Scott, you want to talk about the grants, correct? I'll let you do that.
Yes, please. As you saw in your packets, I believe it was your Friday packet, we had a request from the borough engineer for some direction from council as to what grant applications council wishes the engineer to apply for the upcoming spring season. Remember, this is just spring season, not the entire year of 2019. There were 5 included on that request. 3 are CDBG, 2 are Keystone grants from the state. So we need to get back to him. In fact, he called me today again about it. I need to get back to him tomorrow with what your wishes are.
Scott, out of the 5, how many of them are new grants that are not budgeted for?
Well, number 1 on the list is a new grant. Number 2.
What was that one? I don't have
That's
it in front of me.
the ADA curb ramps for 2019 roads to be paved.
Okay.
So that would only affect the roads that we're doing going into 2019, correct?
Correct.
Which was Union.
Washington. Portion of Washington and South Delmore.
If we don't do ADA ramps when we repave these roads, will we be in any, I'll say, trouble from PennDOT?
Well, PennDOT, not necessarily, but you could be on the naughty list if you don't do them simultaneously to road project, which is why we were proposing to do them simultaneously. Plus, there's nothing I hate more than a brand new road being cut open. It irks me.
too.
So these are the roads that are on the slate to be paved this year?
Yes.
So that's, okay.
Can I ask a quick question at this time? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I noticed that I did not see the levy accreditation on there. Now, is that something that would not be for the spring, but later on in the year?
Yes, that's not a spring season.
So we could still do the levy accreditation later on in the year, even if we chose to continue forward with these 5 projects.
Oh, yes, we were fully intending, unless council directs us otherwise, to do phase 2 of the levy accreditation, but we'll seek your approval on that when that opens.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
I guess to ask the question another way, Scott, if we approve these 5, what kind of deficit would that create if they're not budgeted? What would the dollar amount be?
Well, remember, technically, none of these are budgeted. What you're referring to, I believe, is what you allocated for engineering expenses and what is available in the various funds that you would use for either cost or matching funds, depending on what you're allowed to spend from the funds.
Sure.
Theoretically, council can authorize us to do all of them. I know some of you had reservations about that aggressive approach this year due to financial constraints. So if you wish to tap the brakes and consider this on a seasonal basis as application periods open, that's kind of what we're doing here. But you're going to need to give us authorization to proceed on whichever ones you want us to proceed on. Looking at the list, number 2 is the summer seat accessibility improvements, phase 2. That's the second of what will probably be 3 or 4 parts of completing the block around summer seat.
That's something that's already been started. That's a progression of something that already exists. Yeah,
that's right, and that's also why it's relatively inexpensive if you look at what they're quoting.
Same thing with the tot lot.
Well, that's the third is the Williamson Park tot lot, phase 2 of the playground project.
That would be for the 5 to 12-year-old.
Right, that would be for, and that's, of course, recycling a previous grant application where most of the data and engineering work is already available, why it's such a low price to resubmit.
Okay.
And then 4, which I think is a priority, is, of course, the roof at the library. Remember, we have been talking about this. Actually, it's been talked about even before I worked here, but this has been an ongoing problem at the library. It has an active roof leak, needs to be addressed. We attempted to budget for it last year, but we couldn't swing the money. We had to cut it. And also, to give council clarification, the 3 that are listed as CDBG grant projects, CDBG does not have a match requirement.
Okay, that's good.
So it would just be the engineering.
That's right. The 2 under the Keystone state grants do have a match requirement. In fact, it's usually 50%. So if we were even to do number 4 and number 5, that would only kind of be part 1, because if we got one of those grants, we would probably have to apply to CDBG for the matching portion.
Kind of like we did with the demolition. That's how the demolition works when we came up short.
You have to kind of piggyback the grants in order to minimize the borough's financial obligation.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, then the only new one that's not a continuation would be the curb project, the ADA curb project. Is that right?
The number 1 is not as a new one. That's not a continuation.
Okay.
And 4 and 5 are not new ones, are not continuations, they're new ones.
That's the library?
That's the library
roof.
And if we wish to even entertain number 5.
Yeah, if I may, Madam President. Yeah, number 5, I would have, I'm not going to say an issue with it. I'm not really on board with it. We're being asked to invest in a property that the borough doesn't own. and financially provide for an organization that not only don't we own, but we don't even have a say in appointing the board. So I don't know that it's appropriate for me, at least, to be on board with funding something like that.
Well, that's a completely legitimate concern, and in a situation like this, I would normally suggest that we work with the board of directors of that organization to either get them to financially commit to the cost while we would serve as the municipal sponsor, because they can't apply without us. They have to have a municipal sponsor or some sort of cost share. However, the situation with this organization, I don't think they're financially able to deliver on that, which is another concern.
I have, when I saw that, I have to agree, and I'm all about them improving the building, but I don't think at this time, when we're also trying to do the park and all the sidewalks around there, that we should take that on at this time, and maybe look into if there can be a partnership with them to be part of that financially down the road, whether a fundraiser to help with some of that, but with a 50% match and the municipality putting that out for a building like Mr. Yeager said that we don't own, don't have actually a seat on the board with any of that say, I personally would probably have a problem with that.
That said, Madam President, if it was a situation where the monies to cover everything were being escrowed, I'd like it to come back for consideration. It's just a matter of spending taxpayer dollars on something that the taxpayer doesn't own.
I would echo that.
Yeah, if we could maybe set it aside and not say we want to get rid of it altogether, but I don't think it's something I personally would want to be doing right now at this time when we have several irons in the fire that really need to get it finished.
Well, that's why we're discussing it, taking council's temperature here. How do you feel about 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2 and 4, or 2, 3, 4?
On the ones, 1, 2, 3 in the first section of them, anything for the Emerita property, I think needs to proceed. That's a
So
definite.
number 2 is a yes. I mean, we'll do a vote at the end once we narrow the list down, but
For me, I would think that, yes.
do we have a consensus that number 2 is?
For anyone that's not on board with that.
Is anyone opposed to that? No. Okay. Then why don't we go to
number 3?
Well, let's go to number 3 since that's an existing. How do you all feel about phase 2 of the playground at Williamson Park?
I'm good with it.
Yes.
Yep.
I think so too. I mean, it's a continuation of what we've already started. I'd like to see if it's possible to get that over the finish line.
That's CBG money, right?
That's CDBG, yes.
Yep.
Just keep in, that's right.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind, I don't want to deliver any false hope here. Remember, we applied for this one before and didn't get it, so.
So there's no guarantee that we would get any of these
No.
No, it's
at this point.
But to Mr. Nay's earlier point with the RDA, this was something that was already put in motion that if this council decides to kibosh, probably isn't good for the town.
Right.
The only thing that I wanted council to think about, and I spoke with the manager about this before the meeting when I saw the list, because we also got the money for the actual plan for Williamson Park, I'm all for putting the next phase 2 in. My only thing was, shouldn't we have the plan for the park done first? Are we going to be putting that same phase 2 next to that in that area, or is it going to end up in another spot and you'd have to move it? That would be my thing to think about.
And maybe Mr. Mitchell can shed a little light for me, because that's a good question. From a timing perspective, Scott, would we be seeing the plan back before the tot lot phase 2 went underway, or would the tot lot be decided and be part of the upcoming plan?
That could go either way.
Okay.
Is there a time limit on the CBDG grants?
The CDBG grants, we need answers tonight.
No, I mean on the grant itself. If we get it awarded, do we have 365 days to use it? Or
You've got the timeliness goals to meet. It has to be spent by the end of April
Yeah, April
of the
the following year when you're awarded.
calendar year.
Be
So
End of April 2020.
the good and the bad of CDBG is the projects are typically expedited as much as anything in government
Very-
can move
very
quickly.
quickly, yeah.
They're typically on an expedited basis.
That's why the tot lot, when we were going back and forth with the bids, you had to get that moving because
Right.
they'd run out of time and you would lose and the funding would have to go back because you do have till the timeframe in April, might be the second week or so, maybe the end of April for that to happen. And you don't want to send back funds. So that's my only concern with that is that when we applied for the different grants, you didn't know whether you were going to get any to actually do the master plan. We didn't actually find out about that to the last minute. I think it was December when the manager got a call that said, hey, heads up, you guys got that $50,000. So now we have it and we have to actually develop a plan for it. So my thing was, does it hurt to hold that particular one off to apply into the next cycle and get the plan done first? Is it the chicken or the egg?
Well, there's no reason why you couldn't apply for it in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
The only question is, do you wish to sit out this current cycle on this particular project?
You would want to go forward?
Me personally, yes.
Okay.
Because there's a chance we don't get it and we still have to reapply for it in 2020.
Okay.
So at least this way we're getting 2 shots at it rather than 1.
So if we get it, we just got to then figure out quick where it's going to go and hopefully have some kind of plan in the works for the park by then, correct?
You all right
Yes.
with this?
And once you receive it, what kind of timeline are you under to implement?
A year.
These are the expedited. We have to have them done by mid or end of April.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the timeliness requirement.
And Mr. Mitchell, is this for the purchase of equipment?
Well, this would be the surface and equipment and
installation.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do we have a time frame for the park plan?
We just received that grant in December. I'd have to check the paperwork to see when that expires as to when it gets used, because that came from a different funding than CDBG. Some of those are a little bit longer. So I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find that out.
Maybe that will already be done before.
And it might be. That's the thing, is
probably
you
should
kind of
move
like.
forward, yeah.
Right, yeah. So
Well, the only one I haven't heard from is Councilwoman Chronicle. Do you have a thought on the Williamson Park playground question?
Is she there?
I think I agree with what everyone else is saying, just to move forward, unless I'm mishearing things on my end.
Okay. So we think that one's good. All right. So are you good with those two? Or do we also want to do the library?
I want to do the library.
I would do the library.
Library, definitely.
So that's 3. So we're going to do, and again, we'll vote on this at the end, but I'm just trying to make sure we have a consensus here. We're going to proceed with number 2, number 3, and number 4. And that's summer seat accessibility improvements around Patriots Park, the Williamson Park playground, and the library roof.
What about the ADA?
Yeah, I got to go back to that for a second. If we're doing the road work, that's the next phase this year. To me, that's CDBG. So, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that doesn't have the match for it. So it's the engineering. In the street fund, would we have the extra money to pay the engineering for that to draw that up? Would we have a flexibility
we could
in there?
use our street fund for that purpose. We can't use liquid fuels.
Okay, but we would have maybe in our street fund a possibility.
Yes.
To me, that seems like you said, why would you want to rip up the road to do that? You want to do it at the same time?
Well, just so I got to give you a little perspective on number 1 here. This would not be likely a one and done, because if you're going to stick to a road repaving program, every year, whatever roads you're doing, you're going to be applying again for CDBG for the new roads to do the ADA ramps at the same time. So while it's year by year, application by application, this is going to be like a permanent thing on our list unless you guys tell us to stop repaving roads.
But once you do this ramp, this grant for this one, the fee going forward would not be the same because you already have
Well, there's only so much of an application like this that they would be able to recycle because it's going to depend on the roads that are involved.
Right.
And
How
there's
many,
application fee.
which ones need the ADA ramps done. It's like juggling 19 balls in the air and figuring out which ones will
I
bounce
know
first.
some of our curbs already have
Right.
the ADA.
Sure, the ones that are done and compliant, we're certainly not going to touch, but
Right.
it's the ones that aren't.
So then it would be an as-needed basis for the ADA curbage.
Based on the road repaving projects for that year.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell, is there?
Piggyback on that with a really stupid question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
The grant application, you have to specify which roads at that point, right? You can't just basically ask for kind of a blank check for whatever roads we paved that year, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, because it's CDBG, but it's federal funds.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And the CDBG is not matching.
There's no match required.
Okay,
no.
so that can be done on an annual basis, and we wouldn't have to budget for it.
Correct.
Yep.
And Scott, a quick question on all of this. Is there any portion of this work that can be done in-house currently?
We've discussed and considered that. I've discussed that with John later. I've discussed that with the borough engineer. We've not closed the book on that possibility, certainly, but because of the compliant issue and inspection requirement, and the time involved, quite frankly, but Public Works is a busy department.
Sure.
At this point, if you were to press me for a firm answer, my suggestion would be let the outside contractor do it. They specialize in the compliance portion of this. It's got to be done on a certain timetable to not hold up the road paving project. It'll be built into the bid specs for the road repaving project. I can't tie Public Works down because of emergency work and stuff, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Is that, so are we saying yes to one?
I would do that, yes.
Okay, so
For
we're at
me.
$1,000 to get that done, yeah, I
Yes,
think
I
it's
do.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
And we're going to take one out of our street funds.
Yes.
And what was number 5 again, Scott?
Number 5 is summer seat needing substantial building improvements. Yeah.
The building itself.
Right.
I
We
think,
can come back to that at some point in the future.
We can, yes.
Or like I think it was Mr. Yeager or Ms. Smith mentioned, do maybe some kind of a fundraiser.
So they can have some of the, the money to put towards that grant.
Right.
Yeah.
there would have to be some kind of a partnership to help with that so that it's not going to be a burden on taxpayer dollars for that at this time when we've got these other projects we're working on.
So it sounds like to me we've reached a consensus. If the council president would entertain a motion
I
to.
have a couple questions and comments on 4 and 5.
I should have known, yes.
The library roof, in terms of engineering, I mean, it seems like you would just go out to get a quote and have it replaced. Is that a kind of grant that you can write up and we could skip the engineer?
That's a possibility. We did get one estimate, and the engineer's office actually referred a firm to us to talk to that specializes in this sort of thing. I'd have to look into that more, and we'll see.
Okay, because it seems like if we don't have consensus on that,
Well, my concern is that we don't know what the condition is underneath of those tiles and what we might find. And
It's anything like my house, it's not good.
I like grant writing. It wouldn't bother me, certainly, but in this case, I would probably be more comfortable with the engineer's office doing it. because mainly of the unknowns.
And just to clarify, so
But we could
everybody's
leave that
aware,
up in the air at this point if you
it's
wanted to.
it's an old slate roof, right?
Slate roof,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. So this isn't just throwing some shingles up, throwing some boards and shingles up. This is a big
No.
project.
Right.
This is a big project, yes.
And then you have to decide, are you putting the slate back on, which is very pricey?
That is something we would have to decide. I think the estimate we got initially for, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was composite material was $175,000. So to go with slate, to replace slate with slate, we're looking at substantially more.
Yeah.
Percentage of the slate can be reused. The slate can be reused. We don't know.
Don't know. These are engineering questions that have to be explored.
Do we look at a steel roof?
I'm sorry?
Do we look at a steel roof?
A metal roof is a possibility.
It lasts for
ever, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing
I mean, you have to keep in mind the historic integrity of the
Right.
building. I mean, I don't think it's officially deemed historic, but
No,
it's
but
certainly.
you certainly want to stay with the aesthetics of what the building is, and if you can reuse any of that slate, if we can put slate back on, whatever that analysis would be. Thank you. Is going to be really important because it's a very nice building, so we want to do our best to keep it,
Preserve it.
yeah, as it is. So we need to look at all those costs and what that's going to end up being. But it definitely needs a new roof. If we plan to keep that library rolling, we got to do the maintenance on it. It's our building.
And
I suspect there's more.
I have a comment on the next one then too for Summersea. I agree with Mike. You know, we have no vested interest in the sense of financially or responsibility for it, so I don't think we should go for it. But
Well, you are building a park around it,
yes,
Right.
making it the cornerstone
if
of
we were
that
flush
property.
with money, then yes, I think it wouldn't be an issue. But my comment on that is there any way we could put that out to the public to see if there's anyone with grant writing experience that would be interested in getting involved and maybe talk to Gilmore about it being a good PR campaign for them to donate services for historic building.
It's a good idea.
Renovation.
Thinking outside the box.
It's not a bad idea, since we're going to set it aside and find that out.
Yeah, it's not a.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The bottom line is we have to find the finances for that because of the fact that we don't own that building. So that's always been the crux of it.
Plus, there's going to be considerable amount of study required to do that project. I mean, historic significance, structural integrity,
Yeah, that building
materials.
is actually registered as a national historical building. So it's crucial as to what repairs get done to it, how it's being done. You just can't have anybody just go in and do those repairs. It has to be done properly and to meet those requirements for the historical nature.
Do we know if the Summersea Board themselves have applied for any grants for the building?
No, not that I know of.
I don't know.
Okay.
Last I had heard, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say, but last I heard when I spoke with them.
Okay.
And it's very hard. You have to understand too. When it comes to historical money, that's one of those lucrative kind of accounts that happens when they do the state budget, and sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't. So sometimes you can have a windfall in the account and you're able to apply for it, and then you go through some dry spells where there isn't money available to apply for. So I believe I had heard at times they were searching to see if there was any historical money to get, but I don't think there was at the time they were looking. Not to say something hasn't changed. Every year when those cycles come up and you have a new administration, it's always good to check those sites to see what is available. Okay. All right. Do you
want to entertain a motion authorizing us to proceed with applications 1 through 4?
Okay. Well, since you got that there, why don't you read that motion?
The council president will entertain a motion authorizing the borough engineer to proceed with grant applications 1 through 4 as specified in their letter.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that. I think we've talked about it. I think there's anything else, correct?
Anyone else have any questions
Okay.
before we go forward?
All right. Then we will take a roll call on this, please.
Councilman Dow?
Yes.
Councilman Councilwoman Drysdale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Chronicle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Larison?
Yes.
Councilman Nay?
Yes.
Councilman Parker?
Yes.
Councilwoman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Nay?
Yes.
Motion, all those pass 8-0.
Wow.
Okay. I don't think there's any more motions at this time. Okay, borough officials. I'll just say something real quick, and actually Ms. Harmon had mentioned this today too. There was a nice little article in the paper about the community service, and I just want to thank our borough workers and our staff that helped, and the manager was part of that, and everyone did a great job. The YMCA definitely could use that. They also did in Service Day for Martin Luther King Day also. So it was very nice to see them all joining in and helping with the community. So thank you all very much. Thank you, John, for your guys helping out. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Anyone else have any announcements?
I have two things.
Sure.
One is the Policy and Ordinance Committee met last Wednesday night. We went through and reviewed the short-term rental lodging ordinance that was sent to council. We have a couple of small changes we're going to propose and send to the solicitor for review, and then we're going to send it back up to council with a recommendation to implement it. And throughout the year, we will continue to work towards a proactive program next year to be able to administratively handle the registration of the properties in a database for not only the short-term rentals, but the rental inspection program, the fire inspection program, and as we've been working on since last year, a change in the soliciting ordinance to create a no solicitation list as well.
So when you say short-term rental, you're talking about like Airbnb type of?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And the second thing, I lost that one I was reading. Oh, it was going to be on trash. I'd just like to see, I've got emails today, I got phone calls, I got messages on social media, and I'd like to see our borough manager working with our solicitor to review the contract and seeing what we can do in terms that has teeth.
Spoken to council, and we're going to look at the contract. I'd also like to look at the original bid specifications for that contract.
And I think that given what has been going on in terms of the complaints that I've seen, there is potentially extra contractual remedies other than just going on and proceeding under the contract, no matter what the terms of that might be. But I should be able to complete a review in relatively short time.
Being this is brought up, and thank you, Justin, for bringing it up, because I actually forgot about it myself. I would like to ask the consensus of the council to give authority to our solicitor to be able to draft a letter to this trash hauler company that we're using with the issues that we are having, a legal letter from them as our discontent and where we need to go with this. So does council have any things that they don't want about it, or are you okay with it?
I agree with that. I agree with
I agree with it, but I was just wondering if we should wait for his recommendations as to what we can do outside of the basic contract, whether or not we could cancel contract or possibly put it out for bid before.
Okay.
I don't know, it's just a suggestion. I'd like to hear what his recommendations are.
And bring it to us first before we.
But isn't there also going to be some discussion with a representative from the council?
Tomorrow, yeah, okay. So once we know after reviews, you're okay with him reviewing the contract and seeing where we can go with this? Because it seems.
Personal experience with their issues, and I've had.
I think we all have, so I think it's time that the solicitor gets involved with reviewing that contract and see where we can go with this. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep. But
Okay.
I do think at the conclusion of that review, a letter is appropriate.
Yes.
I don't want to wait until March to make that decision.
Okay. Well, they are coming in tomorrow to meet with the manager once again, and I'm sure he's going to have a whole lot to say to them, as a lot of us all did today. And we will leave it in the hands of the solicitor at this point to start looking into what we can do to protect the borough with this situation that's going on and the residents. So thank you all. Is there anyone else?
I just have one thing, Scott. I had forwarded a email from the Friends of Delaware Canal to you regarding the trash situation again on West Bridge Street 111, I think it is, along the canal there. Is there any enforcement activity that we can?
Well, I know code enforcement is well aware of it. We've discussed it a number of times. The property owner insists, and based on the times the code enforcement officer has been on the property and that I have been on the property, what he's saying is correct, that unfortunately his property is a collection point for trash blowing from all over most of West Trenton Avenue. However, at the end of the day, when my neighbor's trash blows onto my yard, my neighbor's not going to come on my property and pick it up. I have to. But it is a serious problem. It isn't going away, and somebody's going to have to deal with it. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to end up being this property owner. So the property owner has been notified. There's dialogue. I think we'll come to a resolution. I'm not sure everyone will be happy with whatever that is, but we are working on it.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Yep.
Okay. All right, at this point then, I believe we're done, and I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned at 8:58.